Welcome back to ET with GOTB, the drama, Sophie, the drama of the transfer window and the footy as well this weekend. Lots to be getting into. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Welcome back to the latest episode. Before we get cracking on all of the fun things to run through, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen and wherever you watch this podcast, as well as following us across our social medias. We are at Girls on the Ball on pretty much everything, and it means you won't miss out on any of our coverage. Okay, now that we've done that, Sophie, a full weekend of fixtures to get through in the WSL and the Championship, plus the January transfer saga. It closed in the most dramatic of fashions. As ever, we will run through those WSL games. You will then pick out a player of the week. You'll then pick out Sophie's spotlight. I've decided that's what I've decided on.
Okay.
You fan of that?
Sure. I'll go with it.
Alliteration, we like it. It could be a tactic, it could be a lineup, a tweak on a passage of play, whatever takes your fancy. Something you want to shine a spotlight on. You will then run us through our team of the week. We'll look at the results in the Barclays Championship. And then we have to touch on that January transfer window and how it closed and everything that went with it.
I don't know how I go through every week knowing exactly what's coming and not planning ahead.
Yeah, it's really fun for me. Right, let's touch on
the spot thinking.
Really nice for our listeners as well to know how much thought goes into your answers.
Come on, I've watched like 5 of the 6 games of football that were on that weekend. It's not like I'm coming from a place of no knowledge.
True, but you've just outed yourself.
But I am also the most indecisive person on the planet, so it's a downy trait.
I can attest to that. I'm amazed you chose me. All right, let's move on to the Barclays WSL this week. The results are as follows. Manchester City 3, Arsenal 4, 2 goals for Fowler, Miedema, Caldente, Lottova Winmoy, Monum and Blackstenius. Brighton 1, Crystal Palace 1, Woodham own goal and Kato. Everton 4, Leicester 1, Gago with 2, Snoyce, Hayashi and O'Brien on the score sheet. Liverpool 1, West Ham 0. Leanne Kiernan scoring that. Aston Villa 0, Chelsea 1, another own goal this time from Mailing, and Spurs 0, Manchester United 1 with a sublime volley from Elizabeth Turland. The table is as follows. Some things never change. Chelsea are still on top, 7 points clear of their nearest rivals on 37 points. Manchester United are still in second on 30. Arsenal are now in third on 27 points, and Manchester City are in fourth on 25. Down the bottom, the gap has reduced ever so slightly for Palace. They're on 6 points thanks to their draw. They're just 3 points behind Leicester, who are on 9 points in 11th. So at least in touching distance, let's say. Okay, let's talk about the fixtures, shall we? Didn't enjoy them all being on Sunday this week because it just made it more difficult to keep track of everything. And especially I would have liked to have gone to that Manchester City Arsenal game.
Yeah, and I just think like you build up more, I don't know, promotion or more like rhythm over a weekend when you have 2 days or sometimes even a Friday night game. When you have 2 or 3 days of football to kind of get your teeth stuck into. When they're all on the same day and they're all happening, well, not quite at the same time, but you know, back to back or overlapping, it's really hard to keep up with, but also to give it kind of the promotion that it needs.
True. Although I will say I enjoyed our Saturday off.
I did too, but it felt really weird.
It did. Okay, Manchester City, Arsenal. Where to start? These are my 3 key takeaways. Arsenal's fast start, Man City getting back into it, but defence, and again, another controversial penalty call. So a superstar for Arsenal, 2-0 up very quickly. Manchester City were a little bit asleep, and maybe we saw similar things we've seen in the past, which is getting caught out playing out from the back. Yeah,
it's been a really rough few weeks, month for Manchester City for various different reasons. You've got your injury crisis, you know, just before Christmas with Alex Greenwood getting injured, Bunny Shaw getting injured, Viv Miedema not quite back yet. I know she's come back now, but Hemp's still out as well. Lauren Hemp, can't forget about her. So you have had a bit of an injury crisis, and then you can't really get your form together. You know what happened before Christmas, losing to Everton, losing to Barcelona. Yes, I know losing to Barcelona may be seen as a bit different, but it's still part of the narrative of a loss of
form,
in your
head,
right?
Doesn't it?
And then you come back after Christmas and you lose to Manchester United, which is probably the the worst of the lot in a way because
At the Etihad.
It's your rivals and stuff. So it's been a pretty bad month, and then obviously everything that happened last week in terms of Chloe Kelly, and
No
we'll
spoilers, please.
we'll get to it later. But when you're having to deal with that fallout in the build-up as well, I think it makes it quite hard. But they are not ones for trying to fix problems, I don't think, and that's a problem in itself, because they do keep doing the same things again and again and again, and the defence at the back is just looking so fragile. And I know a lot of people, and there is a reason, like Alex Greenwood isn't there, but you can't have a player of like Alexandri's quality, and from what we've seen of like Rebecca Kanak since she's come in, you know, the two fullbacks as well are quality players. Making mistakes like they have been doing in the last few weeks and getting so exposed on the either from a press or an active press or on the counter attack as well, and being so stretched. And I think it has to be a real worry for the team, for Manchester, for Gareth Taylor as well, that he hasn't been able to find a solution, or he doesn't have the flexibility to try and work things out or try different things. He just keeps trying to do the same thing, and the same thing isn't working at the moment.
I do have to say it felt a little bit tit for tat at times, because one of Arsenal's goals was a very poor defensive mistake. One of Man City's goals was a very poor defensive mistake. We've talked about feeding the goat in the box. Don't give Viv the ball if you're a defender. Don't do it. We then had a set piece from Arsenal. We had a great goal from Mary Fowler. Then we had the penalty that shouldn't have been, because it was outside the box. It shouldn't have been a free kick, even in my opinion. Anywhere else on that pitch, that wouldn't have been a free kick. So I could understand if Arsenal if they'd drawn that game,
They would have been furious.
they would have been absolutely raging.
Can I just say on the penalty call?
You can.
I have heard a lot of chat about whether it means we need VAR or whether it means we need better officials. And I think one thing I will say, it was a really bad decision, and bad decisions shouldn't happen. But officials at the same time are human, and every one of us makes mistakes. And it was a pretty big mistake to make, and you would hope that you'd have your assistant referee there to back you up and sort of point out that it was outside the box. But whether we, like, in all areas of the game, mistakes happen, even with, like, some of the Premier League refs who've been refereeing at the top of the game for years and years and years. They all make mistakes. So I am a bit hesitant to all put it on, whether it's just about having better referees. Cheryl Foster is one of the best referees we have in this game, and she's just human. She made a mistake, and she needs some support from somewhere, from technology, some version of technology. I'm not saying we need full-out VAR. We could have the video referral system, where in those moments where those mistakes happen, which hopefully are rare and should be rare.
And to be fair to her, she did wait, and she waited to see if her lino gave any assistance.
But I would just say, I just heard that it's quite a lot of conversation about it's on the referees, and actually, yes, it is on them to be better, and there is no doubt in my mind that Cheryl Foster will be looking back at the game going, what the hell did I just do?
I think
why did I come to that decision?
We are very reactive in the women's game, and we think that the reason these things happen is because not enough investment has gone into the game. Like, we can get fully full-time referees and have VAR, and you can look at the men's game, you're still going to have mistakes. I think because last week felt like a controversial referee performance, which it wasn't really, but because of the teams and the outcome, it felt like a controversial refereeing situation. And then we had another one that was quite clearly not. I think that one's frustration. I don't think Emily Heath one was controversial, because in real time, without technology,
it's a penalty. And even with technology,
let me finish.
Penalty.
Thanks. In real time, without technology, it's not that controversial, because you're seeing something in real time. It's a tackle in the box. It's really not like a blatant yes or no. For me, when something like that this week happened, where it was a good foot and a half outside the box on the lino's side for something that wasn't even a free, that's where you're like, okay, it wasn't a free kick, and on top of that, it happened outside the box. So there's like two things where there's two sets of eyes, and you think, unless you're sure, you shouldn't be given it. So I can understand that one being frustrating. And the thing is, Arsenal won the game in the end, so...
But also, two things can be true, right? You can... the game does need more investment. Referees need more investment. They need more support. They need more help with their training in order to get themselves up to the levels that they really want to be at. And also, you can say that even the best referees in the world make mistakes at points, and they should have a support system when you have technology in place and available. That is the whole point of the technology. And I know there's a whole argument about VAR, and it's got a bit out of control in terms of the mistakes that are perceived to be made by VAR. But in those instances, that's where technology really saves games and saves these decisions, is that it would look back and tell Cheryl Foster immediately that she'd made a mistake and to take away the penalty, and that's what it should be there for. And I don't know, some of the narratives made me a little uncomfortable, because I just don't think it should be all put on. I think we just need to remember that everyone is human. Goalkeepers make mistakes, defenders make mistakes, referees are going to make mistakes.
100%, but I also think you can be annoyed by it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You don't
I'm
have
not
to
saying don't be annoyed by it,
by
but it's not about like, oh, we need to get we just need better officials.
We're like that with everything though. Like, a pitch gets frozen and everyone demands for every pitch to be under soil heating.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very reactive media landscape that we're in at the moment. But like you say, two things can be true. Refs are human, they will make mistakes, and you can also be annoyed at inaccurate calls. Right, let's move on to a less exciting game. Sorry, Brighton, but Brighton versus Crystal Palace, 1-1. I think the most exciting thing, and it probably wasn't that exciting, they won't say it was, but was the red card or the own goal, which was arguably one of the worst own goals I've ever seen. And I think you could do that 100 times, and 99 times out of 100 that would not happen.
Yeah, it's not.
And I'm reluctant to even credit Lily Woodham with that own goal, because it didn't even feel like that dodgy. No, but it didn't even feel like that dodgy a pass back. I didn't even feel like she was under that much pressure. But whatever happened with the goalkeeper, it bobbled as it hit her foot and just bounced over. And because of the pace of the ball, you just knew. I watched her run. I was like, not getting that. We all know it's a goal.
I think it was a loss of concentration in that moment. And I will say one thing: it was a horrible own goal to concede. But I do think the way that she and the team picked themselves up after conceding it, for a team like Palace, who are in the depth of a relegation battle, they're fighting for their lives. Results haven't been going their way. They've been conceding 92nd and 95th minute goals recently. A mistake like that you could easily see could completely put you back. And the one thing that I really liked about that is the ball went in the back of the net. The keeper, she was absolutely distraught, and I think it was Amy Everett and Lily Woodham ran straight over to her, gave her a bit of a pat on the back. Basically was like, it's not it's not on you, let's get going.
And also
again.
It was like first half.
And she made a really brilliant save of
Maisie
Simons' free kick just before the break to keep it at 1-0 and keep her team in it. So I think it was that kind of, for me, that shows the mentality shift of this team, or the mentality development of this team, where they're able to pick themselves up after something bad happens, and to go again and to keep going, keep trying to plug away. And it wasn't pretty. It definitely wasn't a pretty game, but they kept going, and their persistence managed to get them back into it.
Well, my 3 points to pull out of this was a solid defensive display from Palace and a horror own goal. Brighton looking less creative. Their goal, they didn't even score their goal. And then a red card, and the question mark, I said, was fair, and it was. It's just another point to touch on. Came early in the second half. I don't think Maisie Simons was expecting it, but I just thought she lost control a little bit in the tackle and was just a little bit too high.
Yeah, her foot was just a bit too high. It connected with Amy Everett, who incidentally had to go off because of it afterwards. There was no intention in it at all from Maisie at all, but you can't go in like that and kind of lunge in a bit or go in a bit recklessly. And I think the referee felt that she only had one decision to make in that circumstances. She gave the referee a decision to make, and it was a red card. And I think Palace didn't really respond very quickly to it. They just kind of struggled against.
No, the final 10, I thought they were good.
Was probably the best part of the game, but they were good. And then all hell broke loose in injury time when they had the shot cleared off the line by that brilliant Guru Boswant header, goal-saving header, and then went straight down the other end and hit the post when they should have scored. But I guess for Brighton, yes, creativity. They registered 3 shots on target. That's not good enough for a team as attacking with the attacking setup that Brighton have, and I think they need to be probably trying to focus on that a bit, because it's been a theme since January.
Yeah. Well done, Palace, for getting a much-needed point and Mike Cato for getting the goal as well. Right, another exciting game that we didn't get to see. Everton, well, we saw it, but not live. Everton 4, Leicester 1. Everton coming out swinging with all these goals. Firstly, welcome to the league. Kelly Gago, where have you been? Leicester, good first half, but fell away, I thought. And then, I guess what happened to the Foxes' normally relatively solid defence is the question I'm asking off that game.
So I've been saying to you and to a few people.
You've been saying to these guys.
And
They've
to these
heard you
guys.
multiple times tell us how good Leicester's
No,
defence
that's not what I was saying.
Well, she
But
has.
I have been saying that too.
And you've heard that.
No, but I think since Kelly Gago has come into the league, I have kind of thought, outside of the kind of big names, she is my signing of the winter transfer window. And
I'd argue that she is the sign for me, the signing of the transfer window in terms of a team and what a team needs. And you know, I know Chelsea have obviously made these very impressive signings, but they were already top of the league. Everton were in and around
she's
that
suddenly
bottom.
given Everton a goal scoring outlet, and arguably when you look at their opponents on Sunday, that's exactly what they need. I know they brought in a Colombian player on loan, 18-year-old, but she wasn't available to play yet. But for Everton, it's exactly what they needed. They were missing that person to hit up top and who would get those goals and be quite clinical with them. And I think the partnership that she's building now with Tony Payne and Katia Snoish, Katia's dropped a bit deeper into the 10. Tony Payne is sitting alongside her as like a double striker. So I think it's working really well. It shows a lot of development, and Everton fans will be super excited about what they can do as they settle in more.
I also think it might help Tony Payne find her feet more as well, because I think she struggled a little bit. I know, was she injured at the beginning or we didn't see much of her, but she's getting in and around and you just feel like there's more from her, and I do wonder if that partnership with Kelly Gago is going to help.
I think her productivity is frustrating, especially for someone she's got 28, 29-year-old. And she has all of the pace and the attributes, but she just doesn't have that end product. And I think for her in this game, she became not the one who was expected to score the goals, but the one to set up the goals, and that actually suits her maybe a little bit better. And she got the 2 assists in that game as well. So probably shows that that's where she can probably add to this team a bit more than being that kind of focal point of scoring goals.
Yeah, so she could end up being quite a good partnership. Should Leicester be worried, given I feel like they were leaning a lot on being defensively solid and then hoping to get a goal, whereas now they're maybe still struggling with goals. I know they've brought in a new Icelandic striker, but if their defence falls apart, particularly against a team in and around them.
I think it's too early to say that the defence is falling apart. Okay. I think it's one game, and the manner they were really competitive in that first half. I think they just got blown away a bit in that second half, and both by the confidence that Everton had. I think also playing at Walton Hall Park is never easy, never fun. But I think if it happens repetitively, then you can start to think about that narrative. But at the moment, it's been one game, and the whole season so far where they've really fallen apart.
So don't read too much into it, is what Sophie's saying.
But they do need to sort out their striking.
Okay. The other side of Liverpool, the red side, Liverpool 1, West Ham 0. Back-to-back home wins for Liverpool. Point number 1. No shots on target for West Ham, which is not ideal. And then Kiernan as well finding her feet, which is good to see. Another goal for her. She scored, I think, in the FA Cup earlier that week as well. And I mean, Liverpool beat West Ham 5-0 in the earlier round of the FA Cup replay, right? Same week. And you would, I mean, let's say, look at it and say West Ham obviously did learn, but obviously they had a full squad as well because Tiziak had been sent off in the FA Cup. But like, you often say that it's a losing team that will learn more. And in this instance, it did feel like West Ham were getting themselves into good positions, but they weren't being clinical at all, which is surprising given the form of SA.
Yeah, but I think it's a tale of two teams who have been struggling
for consistency?
Yeah, with their inconsistency this season. And Liverpool are a prime example of it, West Ham are a prime example. They go and get a really good win, say West Ham against Everton last week, and then they kind of can't back that up with another one. And it's the same with Liverpool this season.
Didn't they lose to Leicester last week?
Yeah, they lose to Leicester, but then they win at home to West Ham. So it's that kind of lack of consistency that really, really damages these teams. I think certainly Liverpool, but West Ham also have enough to stay out of that kind of relegation fight. They have enough quality on that pitch. But for Ryan Skinner and for Matt Beard, I know he came away with this win, but they must be really that must be a real focal point, trying to nail down that consistency so that week in, week out, they can go and know that they can really start making their performances count and back up wins.
And even just having games, like not going games with 0 shots on target like that.
Yeah, it's I think across the board though this season.
Everton did it last week against West Ham. They had 17 chances and none of them were on target.
So it's just a weird theme of the weekend as well, because across the board, even like the teams with the more attacking depth just didn't really create all that much.
Well, we'll come to it when we were looking at goalkeeper the weekend. It was actually quite hard to determine because didn't have a lot to do with goalkeepers this
weekend. The most
weekend.
amount of saves, I think it was Van Domselaar, and then
with 3.
Yeah, it was 3 saves. So that kind of shows that the creativity is kind of lacking.
All right, Aston Villa 0, Chelsea 1. Here's my takeaways. Disciplined Villa performance. An own goal, giving Chelsea the win. Another win. And I guess what to make of Natalia Arroyo's approach, because this was her first game in charge. Talk about like straight into the frying pan or whatever, the frying pan into the, I don't know, fire, whatever. Big bloody game to start with against Chelsea, the reigning champions, and to hold them until the 82nd minute. Now, people are going to say you have to put yourself in those positions to force defenders into mistakes to score those own goals, but it will still be gutting that is how they lost the game, and that's how Chelsea have gotten another win. 12 wins in 13? They haven't lost in a game in the WSL?
Yeah, I think it's a sign of, to be champions, you have to have that mentality, and I think Sonia said it after the game, to be able to win at all costs, well, to be whatever the circumstances, so even when you're not at 100%, to find a way, and then you also need a bit of luck on your side. And in this game, yes, the driving run from Ramirez made the goal, but you have to have the luck that Malin can't get herself corrected enough to not poke it into her net.
I think what was annoying was how it was put out, and it was all like, Ramirez gets Chelsea the win, and Ramirez gets the goal, and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it wasn't on target, it was a cross, and it was an own goal. It was just an odd way of framing it.
Yeah, and I think it's but as I was kind of saying, it's kind of the sign of champions is that you can get those wins when you needed to. And I do want to sort of say that that's back-to-back 1-0 wins for Chelsea. I do think there's sometimes a bit of a carry away, no, I mean, they are supreme.
We don't interrogate the performances enough.
But there are close performances, and this one was one of them. And I think Villa did their jobs really, really well. And actually, they could have had, if Hansen scored that goal,
the save
would have been spectacular.
Was it Hampton?
Yeah, Hampton fingertip save.
Yeah.
Onto the bar. But I think that narrative could be a bit different. It's it's one that Villa will take a lot from.
Yeah.
In terms of the performance, I think Natalia Arroyo will know kind of more about her team after that game, more about their resilience in terms of and playing at Villa Park and all of that stuff. It's all going to be learning for her, and for her, she's got a bit of a not an easy pass this next 4 months, but it's kind of, she's got time now to really think about her squad. They have to renew it in the summer. There is going to have to be some refreshing of it, and to see what she can do with it, and to really learn about her players without having that pressure, because they're not going to go down. So then, without having that pressure of relegation, and it's really about building for next season for her, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Kira Walsh made her debut. She's back. All right, final game of the weekend. This is the one we got to go and see as well. Spurs 0, Manchester United 1, which was competing with Brighton with one of the least exciting games of the weekend, I think. It didn't live up to what we'd hoped, perhaps. 3 key takeaways. Number 1, another dull game. Number 2, super turn and strike. Number 3, United deserving winners, but a slight lack of creativity, I'd say, from both sides, particularly Spurs.
It was really dull.
Okay.
And I'm not going to beat about the bush about it. I know we try and jazz things up in the women's game sometimes, but no, it was not a good game at all, apart from that moment of quality from Elizabeth Tell. She lost scoring against Tottenham. I think that was her 6th goal against Tottenham. Tottenham must absolutely hate her. The defenders must just not like to see her coming at all. United did enough to win the game, but they still only registered 2 shots on target, which was the same as what Tottenham did. Tottenham are really struggling with their identity at the moment. I look at them play and I don't really know what they're trying to do. And I think it's a massive stark contrast to, even when they were losing last year to teams like Manchester United, you could see what they were trying to do. You could see the identity that they were trying to play with, and I can't really see that at the moment. I really don't get the persistence with the Thomas England partnership and the sort of flipping between the 9 and the 10 between them. I think you just have to be a bit ruthless and pick one of them. And for me, part of the problem in this game was when Bethany England dropped deep because she wants to help her team out and she wants to go and get the ball, and part of her role is to flip into that 10 role. The runs weren't being made into the space where she would be if she'd stayed in that number 9 role. So you either have to switch one of them out or be really disciplined with it and say, Martha Thomas, you need to stay in that 10 role, and England, you have to stay at the top rather than dropping so deep. I think at one point England was playing left back for a minute. I mean, that kind of summed up the game.
I do think like being ruthless also allows you to have quality off the bench.
Yeah.
You know, so you can take off a Bethany England, you can bring on a Martha Thomas, or vice versa, and playing them both maybe doesn't give you that impact necessarily either in the middle of a game.
Yeah, I do think they've strengthened well in the January window, maybe with players that have gone under the radar a little bit. I do think Olivia Holt looks like she could be that number 10 or that attacking midfielder when she's brought up to speed a bit. But yeah, I just think it's a weird persistence, and maybe it's because of personnel at the moment and injuries, but I just don't think. And then the other point for me is that Jess Naz and Hayley Rasso, they work incredibly hard for the team. They can break down the wings, but neither of them have the kind of numbers in front of goal, the productivity that you really need to be turning yourself around. So kind of need to have a look at those areas as well and see what's best for them,
because they were finding themselves, it was almost like wrong player right time kind of thing. At times. No, I can understand that. But 5 wins in 5 for Manchester United, and they're up to second, so can't complain if you're a United
3
fan,
points is all that counts.
Exactly. All right, we're going to move on to your player of the week.
My player of the week, I am going to go with Cara Kinnicross, because I think she is, not by Arsenal fans, but I think she's generally not talked about as much as she should be in the league. I think what she is able to do on the ball for Arsenal is incredible, and I think she actually was really hard done by with the loss of when Jonas left and Renee came in. They kind of reverted to the kind of traditional midfield of Leah Vulty and Kim Little for a bit, and they're both quality players, but I do think Cooney Cross in the first part of the season was probably Arsenal's best player. I think she is the future of that midfield. I think if Arsenal are going forward, for all of the talk of Kara Walsh's and everything, Cooney Cross and Pullover when she's back are the future of Arsenal's midfield, and Arsenal as a football club should work to build around them.
Yes.
I don't think you necessarily need the shiny toys or like the big signings to come in and replace them.
You've got
build around
there.
them. There are other places where you need to add depth in those positions, don't get me wrong, but I think if you're looking at the future, you should be thinking about those two and being the centrepiece of your team.
Sure.
And that could be very, very exciting, so I'll go with her.
Okay, what do you want to shine a spotlight on this week, Sophie?
I am going to go for Everton's second goal.
Okay.
I think it was Gargo to Tony Payne, back to Snoish into the goal, and I think it just exemplified the kind of football that Brian Sorensen really desires to play but hasn't been able to in many, many months, and he's had to sacrifice it a bit, but I just thought the way that they linked up, the instinctive nature of knowing where the runs were going to be, it just showed such a good understanding of each other in quite a short space of time. But also gave me like excitement for the future. If those three can stay fit and really start building those relationships, they add a lot of creativity, a lot of pace, and a clinical finishing that Everton just have been lacking in recent years.
Absolutely. Okay.
Can I give it just a quick shout out though?
You can.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to another Everton player because I just don't think she's talked about enough, and that's Honoka Hayashi. I think she is absolute quality, so I just wanted to say that.
Okay. While we're on Everton, should we also shout out Meg Finnegan, who unfortunately did her ACL against Leicester last week, was it? Gutting for her, a third ACL injury for Everton, which is just a nightmare, and especially your captain, Everton through and through. So wishing you the best for your recovery. Yeah. Okay, talk us through the team of the week, please. Was this an easy one or was this difficult?
Bits of it were easy and bits of it weren't. So Hannah Hampton in goal, bit of a struggle, but I thought she made the probably the best save of the weekend.
And the most important
Closely
save.
followed by Daphne van Domselaars, Viv Miedema.
Yes.
But Hannah Hampton, I think that was really important to keep, the score level and to kind of, give Chelsea a foothold, and then they go on and win the game, like the way they did. Then at right back, I've had Jade Riviere. Thought she was real quality for United throughout, and she set up the goal as well, if I'm not wrong. Letizia at the back, I thought she was all over. She was just so dominant in terms of her leadership, but also in terms of her defending. And it's not the first time we've had her in this lineup this year. So I think that kind of shows the form that she's on. She's ridiculous as well. She plays every single game.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's mad. Lotte Wubbenmoy, big shout out to her. First start, I think, under Renee Sleggers. Oh no, first start in the league, under Renee Sleggers.
Yeah.
She started in the FA Cup. But she made it count. She bossed that defence. I do still think her partnership with Leah Williamson is probably the best Arsenal have. I know that would be controversial in some places, but I do think the two of them should be the centre-back pairing. They just really work together. I thought she was so kind of commanding in her own box, but then also the bravery to score that goal and to fling herself at a flying Kiara Keating and take the knock, but also get it on target and home. And then also the celebration.
I really feel like I should have given you a time limit on this, like I did last week, but
just keep going.
Up to the fourth player in the back line here.
Left back, Lily Woodham. I know some might be surprised at that because she scored the own goal, but it wasn't her fault, and I thought she was incredible for them. Kind of epitomised their work rate throughout the game. Then on the right side, I've got Fujino. We're going 4-4-2, by the way. Got Fujino of Manchester City, crucial in their goals and all of their creativity. She was at the heart of it. Hana Kayashi in the middle, as I said before, underrated. Cooney Cross,
I know why.
Superb as well. Mariona Caldente out on the left. I know she played more inside, but she's
on the left now, so we can get her in the team, right?
In the team, and she was superb, I think, against Manchester City, and her work rate is really underrated as well. Then up front, we've got the two Evertonians. We've got Kelly Gargo and Tony Payne.
Who'd have thought we'd have two Evertonian strikers in our team of the week?
And three Evertonians in the league.
Well, I can imagine that more, but two strikers when they've been struggling so much in front of goal. So, wonderful. Well done, Everton. Right, let's move on to the Barclays Championship results. Charlton versus Blackburn was postponed with about a half an hour notice. That's pretty shocking.
It's really, really bad.
Yeah.
It's for a frozen pitch as well. The pitch doesn't unfreeze.
In an hour.
In an hour. If it's frozen, it's frozen. It's just going to be frozen.
The thing about 9:30 pitch inspections, either go by the result at 9:30 or don't. Don't then go, okay, we've decided after the 9:30 pitch inspection we're going to have another pitch inspection closer to the friggin' time. Just make the decision.
Fans were in the stadium. The Blackburn goalkeepers have warmed up.
And Blackburn as well. They're coming so far. Okay. Sheffield 1, Durham 1. Portsmouth 0, London City 1. Got it with them. Southampton 2, Newcastle 2, Sunderland 0, Birmingham 1. So Birmingham are still top on 26. London City Lionesses are now in second on 25 points. Bristol City and Durham are on 23 points in third and fourth respectively, and just below them on 21 points is both Charlton and Sunderland, with Newcastle now 7 points off the top in seventh. So is it still a 7-horse race? Yeah. Okay, still a 7-horse race. Despite another close performance again against London City Lionesses, Portsmouth continue to prop up the table on 2 points, with Sheffield now above, pulling away on 6 thanks to that draw. So I do feel for Portsmouth because they're clearly improving. Their results are getting closer and closer, and they're just not coming away with any points, which will be very frustrating for them.
Yeah, it will be. But they are developing, which it didn't look like they would at the start of the season.
Yes.
So. That's positive.
Yes. Okay, let's get to deadline day drama. I feel like we all know the Chloe Kelly saga, the statement she released on the Wednesday about being unhappy at City and how she felt they weren't letting her go, essentially, and also not being played. I could understand that, feeling like you're between a rock and a hard place. She took a bit of a stand, made a statement, was very conscious of the fact that there's the Euros in the summer and she wants game time if she's any hope of getting into that squad, so respect to her for that. And there was names floating around. It was going to be Manchester United, was it going to be Brighton? And then Arsenal came swooping in at the last moment to bring her in on loan. They'll be delighted to have her. Important depth on that right wing as well, which I think Arsenal have needed. And equally, we got to shout out that Katie McCabe, Chloe Kelly intro video as well.
I enjoyed that. I hope they make it into a celebration.
Something had to be done with it. People were crying out for it.
Yeah.
So well done to them. That was very clever. Of course, we had the Ciara Walsh coming to Chelsea, which felt like an absolute age because we all kind of knew in advance that it was happening. It had kind of been reported that a deal had been reached, and then it took really long to actually confirm it. I started to wonder, had someone gone on siesta or something in Spain and closed the offices early, and were the paperwork going to be stamped at the right time, and did they get maybe the time zone wrong, and did they get it in late? But no. They got it in on time. Kira Walsh is a Chelsea Blue, key player for them in that central defensive midfield area. They have been looking for a player like that for a while.
Yeah.
So, she will fit right in, I'm sure.
Yeah. I didn't know where we were going with this. Yes, Kira Walsh, they're building a squad to win the Champions League, and she brings that quality. And I do think that maybe Chelsea midfield area at times hasn't always been the strongest this season, so she'll bring a lot of quality to that. It'll be interesting to see how she fits into it.
Yeah.
With Niskanen and Cuthbert, but obviously Vika captain as well, who has done really well, but she's still very young. So
she also offers an alternative way to play, right? Which is just what you want if you're coming up against Chelsea, is for them to have another ace up their sleeve. So here we are. We've also got Maren Mjelde back at Everton, a very shrewd signing, particularly given the injury to Megan Finnegan. So good to see her back. I just feel like she was going to end up back here somewhere.
Yeah, it felt like she was coming back to England. I think she spent the end of last season in Norway, but she's still got a lot of quality in her, and I think she probably will do really well for Everton. Okay, so Helene Idriksdottir to Leicester, Van Egmond to Birmingham, Emily Murphy to Newcastle. Which one surprised you the most? So if I'm going surprising, the biggest guffaw I got, the biggest surprise was when the email dropped in our inbox about Emily Van Egmond, because it gone totally under the radar, I think. I messaged the press officer and was like, well, that's a signing and a half. I know she's on the latter end of her career, but in terms of what Birmingham are looking to do, and in terms of trying to get that quality to get up to the WSL, absolutely going to be key for them, especially in the absence of Liliag, who's done her ACL. So really, really crucial for them. I think the whole drama around Chloe Kelly was surprising, just the way it played out. I hate transfer window, you know this. I really, really hate transfer season. I just want it all done and dusted.
You don't like rumours?
I don't like rumours. I don't really care for rumours. I just want to know where they're going and if they're going, and I don't care for the in-between bits. But I have to say, I did really enjoy transfer deadline day on Thursday. And I think it's probably the first one that's been so super, in terms of the drama of it.
Yeah.
So super intense and can't take your eyes off it. And in some arguments, it's not been that way for a while in terms of the men's game or the women's game. So I think it was the first one where you've really had that drama. One team answer. Who did the best? I mean, everyone would say Chelsea, but I'm going to go Everton. Does that sound like one word? Did that sound like one word? I'm going to go off the curve and go with Everton.
Please elaborate more, why don't you? In my one word answer. Thank you. Okay, who do you think not did the worst, but should have done better out of everyone? Aston Villa. Oh, okay. I like that. Very much. I mean, they didn't do anything. Is that because they feel like they have everyone they need? That's what I mean from that. No, but when you're at the bottom of the table, you need to be making moves. I do think refreshing a squad is good, and the things around it, the circumstances around it, are that they had no manager and a new manager came in, so it makes it trickier, but still, Aston Villa. Okay. Finally, I'd wanted to shout out Millie Bright as well for calling out some of the kind of verbal abuse that players were getting on the side of the pitch at the game, while also still demanding photos and selfies and shirts and stuff like that. She made a very good post reminding people that they are not commodities, they are players, they are people. Can I give one other shout out? Okay. Zecira Misevic. Zecira Misevic, congratulations. Baby. Congratulations. Another little Chelsea Blue. Very sweet. And wishing you the best with the pregnancy. Means she'll be out at the end of the season, of course, and we'll miss the Euros, but very, very exciting news. Yes. Very quickly, coming up, Chelsea versus West Ham, Arsenal versus Man City, both in the semi-finals of the Subway Cup. Nom nom. FA Cup fifth round is coming up, and we will be doing Villa versus Brighton, Wolves versus Manchester United, and Chelsea versus Everton. So if you don't want to miss any of our coverage of those games, make sure you're following us across all of our social media platforms at GirlsontheBall. We will try and go live on Saturday, either before, in between, or after the games we are doing. Otherwise, we'll be back next episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball early next week. We'll chat to you then.